We are now live. We have got the one and only Dan of Godfoe Universe in the chat tonight. He was our first ever live guest on the 5 Pillars of Storytelling Live. It was like the birth of Western civilization in around about 1.5, 2 hours. And we will say now, was it now show 59, live 59, issue 59. All we're going to say is the circle now complete. Let's do a bit of this. Whoa, we love it when we do that. A bit of Hitchcock, a bit of Planet of the Apes, all in some kind of hybrid. Mix them up, and Dan, the moment's finally arrived. We've done a bit of green room chat. Full enough, Biophile Kolga green, just for you. And we did a bit of prelude. I was in the bath during the prelude just to help raise the Titanic in terms of ourselves. We always, it's tradition, we do this to be fresh for the guests, and mouthwash, flossing, that, well, you don't know about all that, but let's just say we like to make sure we're particular for our guests. Now then, we are doing this, the 5 Pillars of Storytelling Live. Azrael chats to Godfoe Universe. First time was Dan and Godfoe Universe on our very first live first issue. And tell you what, the gods have spoken then. We feel the gods have spoken again. Art, comics, movies, games, and toys are joined by that golden umbilical thread that goes through 5 eyes of a needle for our umbrella arch of storytelling. A broad niche with some niches. Art can get made into comics. Comics can get made into movies. That's where the big money is. But the even bigger money now is games. And then, of course, in the privacy of our own man-child mind, just like being born again 7, the limited effects budget of playing around with action toys. But we laugh and we do chuckle a little bit. But now, in the modern era, with Todd McFarlane toys and a lot of custom guys out there and gals, we've seen one lady do a custom Dazzler piece, which was absolutely amazing. Made us a Dazzler believer. And all we can say is it's Michelangelo sculpting for the masses. That's what action toys have become. And we're going to say things like that a lot tonight in this show, because we've got Dan, burning embers of Western civilization, Evans, on our show. Got to say a bit like that. It's Sunday, December it's Sunday, the 7th of December. Biophile Kolga is the book we're going to be talking about. It's just after 8. Good job, Dan, rearranged for a little bit later tonight, because we were basically, shall I say, raising the Titanic, quite almost literally, figuratively, literally. Hello, Dave Brink at Genuine Comics. Speaking of Western civilization, this guy commands his convention table and sells the books to his adoring masses, and he does conventions in cathedrals. That's what he does. The most beautiful cathedral we've ever seen for our comic book convention. And boy, it's hello and Dan, he says, the face behind Godfoe Universe. It is, Dave. And if you want to ask one of your Sword of Damocles, just saying, one of your Sword of Damocles questions tonight, Dan is your man. Got to say that. And Dave, it's great to have you. Genuine Comics are at the vanguard of superhero indie comics, at the wild frontier of indie comics. Absolutely. It's good to have you in the chat, Dave. Yeah, vanguard. Yeah, he's just, him and his team. He's Dave's tip of the spear. Right then. So please like, comment, and subscribe to 5 Pillars of Storytelling on YouTube. A few seconds of your time. Dan at Godfoe Universe on YouTube. Hit us up on X with a like. It takes a few seconds every time, but we call it the power of one. The power of one makes a big difference every time we grow and put that one Lego keystone brick in our foundations and build that wall brick by brick. It all adds up accumulatively over time. And it helps us shine a brighter light on people like Dan and Josh of Godfoe Universe.
That's right.
And Dave Brink there in the chat. And we know he's going to come up with a question and be percolating right now. He's going to let Dan have it at some point. It could be the mother of all questions. Azrael, do you get excited? Why not? Host introduction. Hello there. Welcome to the 5 Pillars of Storytelling Live, where we talk art, comics, movies, games, and toys. Games been figured a little bit at the 5 Pillars of Storytelling lately, where we've been showcasing creative leaders on our Saturday, Creative Leaders Saturday. People like Scott from Scotland. Yes, Scotland does have an indie gaming, shall we call it, Braveheart, and cyber driving all the way on his Tron-inspired Vector Retina eyeball-scorching racer, and a few other things besides if you want to get into a Vector mash up. So yes, I'm your host Azrael, storyteller and artist, promoter of indie creators, indie comics, and the indie comic community. Our style is universal. We can be watched by creative families. Yes, families. We don't do drama or swearing. We keep all that sort of stuff inside the comics. We try to be a family-friendly show. Our style is universal. We can be watched by creative families. Our motto is to listen, learn, and share. Got to do it. Inspiring quote, comics on international language. They cross boundaries and generations. This is what they can do. They can cross. They can bridge build. Comics are a bridge between all cultures. Azuma Tezuka, legend. Now then, guest introduction. It's been a while since we've done this. And so he doesn't have to. We're going to say something nice about Tim, because most creators are very self-effacing, very modest. Oh, wait a minute. Dave is wondering before we start our guest introduction. Well, just this once, then we'll interrupt our introduction. You know what we're like when we see a comment from the chat. I was always wondering about the brand name. Does Godfoe Universe make books with a religious message? Now, before we get onto that hot potato, let's continue with our introduction. We'll come back to that one. Godfoe Universe, Dave, you naughty boy. At Godfoe Universe, everything related to the Godfoe Universe, comics, books, movies, music, podcasts, and more. Crikey. There are 5 pillars of storytelling all by themselves.
That's right.
Artist at Joshua Adams, 83. Yes, that's with a footnote in between. And writer, modestly putting himself after the artist in that equation, Dan, Burning Embers of Western Civilization, Evans, crowdfunding at Fund My Comic and at Kickstarter. Dan, as we've said or alluded to, is the burning phoenix embers of Western civilization so that it may rise again. And if anything he has to say about it, it will. And Josh is a shadow of darkness. Together they have forged the God Machine of indie comics. Welcome returning first ever special guest, Dan Weston Evans of the Godfoe Universe.
I don't know if any man can bear such a title.
I know it's just a little bit heavy at the moment. We feel that way in Britain for reasons that we just can't remember or think about why.
Or say legally.
Or say legally. Just going to check with our lawyer.
I was wondering if I was going to need to use Google Translate if you were speaking Arabic today.
Yeah, no, we've been told we've got to be a really good boy today from our legal team that are just off camera with a shepherd's hook. Right then, Godfoe Universe, and we're talking Biophile Kolga. Sure. And we shall get to Dave's question in a moment. You might even get to it now. Big 5 questions. Big 6 if Dave Vanguard Brink at Genuine Comics has anything to say about it. But before we do, we get the feeling that Dave's question might dovetail nicely into after the big one. Who is Dan Evans? And we're talking storytelling influences, art journey, movies, and music.
Sure. Storytelling. I mean, I've been reading since I've been born. Basically, I don't remember a time when I couldn't read because I had good parents. They were both educators, and we've done the same thing with our kids. My dad always had a huge stack of books. He particularly had a big collection of. It was like the classics for kids, and they were just like shorter, abridged versions of like stuff like Moby Dick, Charles Dickens, and that kind of stuff. So stories have just always been a part. It's always been in my head. We were surrounded by it. My mother was and still is a musician. She was mostly a church musician, but her and her sisters, they could do a remarkable, basically Southern 4-part harmony, kind of like that bluegrass style. So to me, a lot of the things like you're saying, the pillars, like movies and all that kind of stuff, it was always all together. I never saw them as a separate thing, especially the idea of the backbone of a story. And that's actually something that's like a pet peeve of mine when you get into particularities with mediums is people, I think, put up arbitrary rules upon mediums that shouldn't be there. I think stories transcend every medium, and you can blend and breed those things together. As far as writing, I could always write. I could always read. I could always write. I was always making stories, but never thought anything about it. I grew up in the rural South, and there's not a lot of opportunity for writing there. It's you get a job or you go to college and you work. And if you know anything about the American South, I mean, we love to work. I mean, that's one thing. One thing, that and eat. We're very good at those two things. So I kind of just put it off. But I was a musician for a long time, and that's how I met Josh, the artist. We were both musicians. He's a fantastic singer, fantastic. His wife in particular is an opera trained, classically trained singer. So we met through that world of music, and through music we started creating the Godfoe Universe. I had a band, and I still have it, called Blue Bolt, that I was working these big concept albums around. I was getting Josh to do the art, and that was the birth of the Godfoe Universe. During that time, I converted to Christianity. To go into Dave's question, we can tie into that. And I was reading a lot of apocalyptic literature, not just biblical, but extra biblical. And this thought just kind of started running in my head of, what would like different into the world, different apocalyptic or eschatological views look like. And just started spinning it around. And I started seeing this pattern all throughout history. If you read it, like, it seems that humans tend to, at least civilization tends to organize itself into a tyranny under a person or a party. And it happens over and over and over and over again. It's probably the defining story of human civilization is we worship something. And even if it's currently in let's say, across the pond, anarcho tyranny, it's still, as I'm sure Kyle can attest to, it tends to happen. And I kept wondering what that was. And the Godfoe Universe was our sandbox to explore philosophical, theological, religious, non-religious, and political questions in a vast array of eras of Kolga, of Apollyon, of the Black Star, all this whole timeline, and really get into the central question of the Godfoe Universe is, can man be God? So to answer your question, Dave, I believe it is. I've seen you on Twitter, Dave. I'm surprised. I'm sorry we haven't ever gotten up. I should probably change that. We make books with that question: can man be God? And we look at history, and we look at philosophy, and we look at religion, and we look at the occult even, and do that. I'd say we explore those things. I wouldn't say it has a religious message, but I would say, I mean, I'm a devout Christian, and so was the artist Josh. We see the world as, when you ask these questions, Christ is the answer you're going to see. And if someone else sees that, I think that's probably what's going to happen. But if not, I mean, that's no skin off my back. Our thing is investigating these questions honestly through story.
Lovely. Dave Brink, interesting question. Yep. Tying in the creator to the work. That's what one of the big 5 questions is. We're all about finding the who of who they are.
Yeah, and as far as like stuff like influences, I mean, what blew my mind, what changed my way of viewing the world was anime back in the day, was especially Evangelion, things like that, things that FLCL really struck at the heart of me. Uh, Books, like I've always loved Anthem by Ayn Rand. I go off on that one a lot. That, The Giver, was it Lois Lowry, and Ender's Game. Those kind of three books are the big pillars for me of like a young man, very young man, like let's say like 10 to 11 or 12, questioning the world and coming to an individualization of themselves. I think those are three great books for any young man to read. When you, if you're going to go out into the world, especially as it is now, when you realize how fake basically everything is and how awful everything is, I think those are great primers rather than just being thrown onto the internet, because you'll get the same answer. It'll just be way worse.
Echo chambered and the rest,
Yeah.
amplified on that Spinal Tap 11 amplifier. Now, just got an idea here. Can you say one thing if I say one book, one art, one movie, one music? And when, just to give you a heads up on the music, we've done this a few times. I think Lady Death's creator said when he did some Darkness Wars, when we were extremely not busy for 3 or so years, we can pass with that one. And he basically said when he went out there to sell to his audience, there was name, insert heavy metal band he likes. Well, we'll put in heavy Metallica, but it wasn't. It was another band. And it's almost that's playing in his head. For us, it'd be Queen, early Queen, first 6 canon, probably Queen 2, Majesty, Bombast, and just a cacophony of Phil Spector harmonies, Hoorah energy, Zeppelin scorching guitars, and was the one Moody Blues with those melodious, haunting harmonies. That would be playing in our head at a convention if we're selling books.
Yes.
So we're going to give you the one and done kind of answer. So, book.
I would say Anthem by Ayn Rand.
We're Atlas Shrugged, very close, you and I. It took us 3 years to read that. That's how slow we are reading. So reading all the indie comics we've backed, also very slow. But we love Godfoe and Biophile Kolga. Reading both, just immersed in them.
Thank you.
Art.
There's a painting called Angel of Hearth and Home. I think it's by Franz or Frank Ernst, maybe. And it's that kind of happily deformed creature dancing in a field. And it's beautiful. I say deformed in that it's not, proper, but it's a beautiful surrealist work. And when I saw that, especially, like I said, growing up in the American South, I mean, I'm old enough, and I believe you are too, to remember before the internet. And before the internet, you didn't get to really, at least I didn't get to see anything like that ever. And that's one of the first things I remembered checking out was surrealist art properly. Like, things like, subversive stuff, kind of like Marilyn Manson, that kind of stuff, like any gore type stuff existed, but to see proper art that questioned reality, I thought was beautiful. That and Dolly, anything by Dolly. And I got to see him at his work at the Florida museum that he had down here. It was beautiful, amazing.
Yeah, Dolly, seen those in real life. They're so tiny as well. They're not.
Yeah.
You think they're going to be these big widescreen.
Well, he has both. Like the clock's like that big, and then he has this angel on a horse that's like 2 stories high.
It does have both, and bit Picasso.
Yep.
We do like Guernica. If we had to name that tune in one, we might go for either the Vitruvian Man or Guernica. Here's another one for you. Movie.
Now I'd have to say End of Evangelion. That's my favorite piece of artwork ever.
And now we're going to go for that music. Is it glass? Is it blue? Those blue grassy roots, a bit like how Dolly Parton kind of started off, and she did, folks.
The single album that changed my life forever and probably saved my life was Siamese Dream by the Smashing Pumpkins. And that was Corgan's ability to create that tapestry of those guitars humming together. That's what made me become a musician when I was like in my teens, was that album.
Okay. There you go. From the heavy side of town, us, Queen 2, it'll never be forgotten. Even they couldn't beat it. Even they couldn't beat it. Right then. And hey, we've been known to like a bit of metal in our time.
No, we can talk metal, but that's the album that changed my life, was Siamese Dream.
That was the one that changed your life. But it's not about us. We like to 100% laser focused on the guest in the show, on the show. Hell yeah, says
Thank you, Tim.
Alton. He's right there with you. And the one of the best albums, he says. Thanks, Tim. Right, we're going in some more. What does Dan Evans create? Let's have the elevator pitch. The Godfoe Universe and then Biophile Kolga. If Azrael was to fly over that mere puddle between us and land down gently in front of your convention table, what's your sales pitch? You're standing there, battle ready, smile and formidable intellect behind those eyes. How are you going to sell us Godfoe Universe and then Biophile Kolga?
The way I sell Biophile Kolga at conventions, and I did today, is we show the game and we let people play the game and then say this is the story that it goes with, because I cannot give you an elevator pitch. And I'll tell you why. I don't care about the quick marketing schemes of the world of appealing to the mass market mainstream. Our stuff, it all works together. It's a big shared universe. There's going to be huge checks, like sections of prose that people will read for our lore or not. But I'll try. Biophile Kolga is about an old heretic opposing a force called God who's been given a cursed new life. She is in possession of a powerful artifact called the Eye of the Fallen, and the entire world is after her because of it.
Amen. And we've been getting a bit of a taste of that in Biophile Kolga ourselves, and we are willingly drowning in it. One thing that does stand out before we proceed is the prose. It's just the kind of thing we love.
Thank you.
It's you can just sail away on it.
Well, that's that's another thing I just kind of was talking about earlier, of not thinking stories are limited specifically to mediums. I mean, if you've read Kolga, there are parts of where her monologue is contradictory to the story, and there are parts where you have to go back and read it. And I enjoy that kind of immersive storytelling. And what blew my mind was reading House of Leaves, if you've read that, by Mark Danielewski.
Go on.
And it's got multiple narratives going on all at once. And we just kind of want to do, like, look, there are so many rules to writing comics, and every rule of the modern world for art is just to make it everything easy for the consumer. I think that sucks. Like, I think if you're a consumer of something you enjoy, and I hate the term consumer, which is why I'll say fan, you will give the art, if it's worthy of it, you'll give it the attention that it deserves. I don't think it's wrong for artists to ask something of their fans.
So welcome to Dr. Mask before 100% agreeing with your point. Welcome, Dr. Mask, a recent guest of ours, and he's out there.
Hey, bud. I don't think the average person is as stupid as billion-dollar corporations think we are.
It's very convenient to market us as chattel, herd, a fluid dynamic that can be coerced into making billionaires into trillionaires.
It's the difference between...
Like you can't see what's happening, you know? Can't you see the string?
What's the difference between TikTok and YouTube? And I know YouTube is a greedy, blood-suckling, whore as well. Sorry, I know I should have said it's a family show. I forgot, but I get angry about that. TikTok is, here, feed you 10 seconds. Feed you 10 seconds. YouTube at least was like, And it's wild that it took a guy like Joe Rogan to prove this point, that people want to hear 3 to 4 to 5 hour talks from someone who knows what they're talking about, for the people he has on.
Yeah.
People can argue about Joe Rogan, whether whoever he is, if he's a caveman or if he's smart or not. The guy knows more about a lot of subjects a little bit than the average person does. And he, more importantly, has people on who know a great deal about those things to come on. And I say all that to say is that, to me, it showed that the average person wants meat. They don't want sugar candy in their content, if I have to use that phrase.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's asking the questions and listening. And we would venture to suggest you become a wiser person by doing that. That's why on this show, we ask the questions and listen. We're 100% laser focused on the guest, because they've got creative leadership, especially in your case, to share with their audience. And I think what you've said so far dovetails nicely into our next question, because we actually sub-dovetailed into a 2A of what is your creative philosophy. If we were doing a comic, just to preempt what you might say, is we go ACE rather than ABC. So tell us about your creative philosophy, Dan.
My creative philosophy is that art is a divine thing, whether you want to call it a spirit or a collective unconscious. And I think the best thing is, a lot of people would say for you as a person to get out of the way. I don't think that's true. I don't think that you are an empty vessel, which art possesses. I think you are to use your skill, discipline, and dedication and energy to court the muse, which is art, the divine inspiration, and then to work with her in a dance to create something beautiful. I think you get up early, you sit down, and you write or you work or whatever it is, and she comes to you and she works with you. I think that you treat the muse as something, I think you treat art as something that is respectful and divine and sacred and good. And you don't treat it as something to make money, and you don't treat it as something for personal gain. A step down from that, you should be skilled and you should be disciplined at what you do. And you don't obsess, you don't worry. Like that is part of the narcissistic idea coming into it. And you see it, I know it's half a joke, but you see it all over social media, some writer complaining about having to write or their insecurity. And it's like, I mean, get over it, man. No artists were this insecure for all of history. That is a modern idea. And a lot of it comes from, we're surrounded by this idea of consensus and a democratic consensus of what other people think. And it's like, who cares? Like, if someone doesn't like your stuff or doesn't like your process or doesn't like you, I mean, get over it.
So you'd almost say that in terms of the creator and the reader, something that we believe personally is, it's almost like a waltz. It's a dance.
Yes. I think there's beauty in that. I think a lot of, and we're writing and we're going to go through a very long remystification of the World Series on our podcast. I don't think anyone has to agree with me religiously to hold the idea that there are things that are sacred, divine, or spiritual that are separate from the mundane. I think the modern world focuses so much on the mundane, it focuses so much on materialism that we're spiritually starved. And I think everything is downstream from that. I think we're intellectually starved because of it. I think we're ethically starved. I think we're morally starved because of it. And I don't want to get it too much into the politics, especially of my country or your country, but you see it. We've had this discussion before. I think you know the story of the Fisher King. And for those who don't know, if you're too young or whatever, the Fisher King is, the gist of it is, there's a king who's sick or he's dying, or he's wounded, whichever version of the story. And because of that, his land is sick. And the only way he is saved, and I believe the most common version of the story, is a knight has to go get the Holy Grail. And that's what heals him. And there's so much symbolism and power and story in that, but it's saying you need the sacred. You need this thing that's far off to heal this thing that is above the king to heal the mundane in the land. There's a hierarchy. And I think that's creative philosophy. I think if you start with the wrong intentions in art, and if you treat it bad, and I think you just have to have, and it doesn't have to be complex. It can be very simple. I think it's just like punk rock. I think you have to have that encompassing of the sacred and divine and the punk, because I think those two are like a horseshoe. I think someone picks up a guitar to play 3 fat chords for the same reason someone goes into a church to sing. And that is, man, I'm really tired of everything else. I want that something more, that something better. And if it's punching a wall because this guy just played a big fat power chord, I think that's great.
And just as a sneaky aside, we went on to, we don't do background checks on people, as you know, but we do send in a crack team of reconnaissance into people's X scrolls to check out things like cosmic, divine attunement in places like cathedrals in the supposed Dark Ages, to think of them more as places of having your consciousness tuned, your spirit tuned, and that the idea of calling this era, considering how they were forged, these cathedrals, and built, were an oxymoron to call them the Dark Ages.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, you would know it better than I. That's your home land over there. But the Dark Ages, I think were kind of started because, was it invasions had started to destroy some of the ports, so they couldn't communicate as much as what it was, and there was a lot of war. It wasn't that the people were stupid. It wasn't that there wasn't innovation. It's just that we don't have writings from it. We don't have trade recordings and those kind of things. And the term just kind of, I think that person who wrote that longer post was correct in the sense that the term has been weaponized via Enlightenment materialism against a more religious or mystical past. I think that happens a lot in academia. I think dialectics are a major problem. And I'm not going to go into a whole Hegelian or like Marx rant here, but I think the world is greater than dialectics. I think that human beings are greater than dialectics. I think when you start thinking left wing versus right wing, you've limited yourself. I mean, I don't know. My opinion is you're a divine being and you have access to the divine. And that's my creative philosophy. My creative philosophy is that art supersedes politics and it supersedes humanity, even though we get to work with it.
We'll have an amen to that. Absolutely. We often say during the kind of shall I say, the forced, co-opted, adopted language of diversity, we say there are 8 billion unique people on this planet, and they're all in 8 billion different groups. Just saying. Right then, let's go into the premise of the Godfoe Universe and Biophile Kolga. Right, are you going to read it, or are we going to do the movie voice?
You can do the movie voice. It's fantastic.
Here we go. An old heretic cursed with a second life must face down cult hordes, ancient witches, and God itself to ensure the powerful eye of the fallen doesn't fall into the wrong hands, which very much could be her own. 100 glorious pages of action, horror, humor, and more. A neo-pulp classic. 100 colored pages, manga-sized, fully finished and ready to print. Few pages pending.
Yeah, and I'll give a little detailed description of it because we've tried to keep, when I say eras, we have different, let's say, creative works. Like we have the other comic, Apollyon 20XX, that takes place at the beginning of our timeline. That is in the same universe as Biophile Kolga. So we call those eras. And so in the Biophile era, this being that is being created in Apollyon 20XX in some way now has influence over the world in Biophile Kolga, and people call it God. And for all intents and purposes, it is a secular God. You really can't question its power and how it works. Well, Kolga was part, as a very young girl, about 12, 13, she was part of something called the Biophile Initiative. And it was a group of people that have a troubling discovery. They have found life before God and they can date it. And that they can figure out that what God does, like this energy called O that influences everything, there are certain creatures that, like from the ocean, that it doesn't influence. And for them, this isn't some Hollywood Hunger Games rebellion idea. It's that this is a deeply troubling theological issue. And what they start to realize is that there's God, but there's also these other forces that would say more malevolent that can also move this and can this energy and influence the minds of people around the world. And what they realize is that they're caught in this giant circle. They can't solve this problem, so they decide to leave. And they backwards engineer a rocket that they found, and they leave. Kolga is left.
Yeah.
And what she now has to endure is basically the wrath of beings that are not supernatural. They're scientific, but for all intents and purposes are supernatural. So the series Biophile Kolga is like a character study of a very old woman who has gained her youth back through supernatural, basically, methods. And she knows how the world works. And that's the worst part. If I have to get heady with it, it's very much a Gnostic work, I would say. She knows the demiurge exists, that this thing that it claims to be God or people think it is not, and there's no escaping it. And the story goes from there. And I know, again, this is a terrible elevator pitch, but we don't care. Like, how are you going to give an elevator pitch of Watchmen? How are you going to give an elevator pitch of, like, Final Crisis? You can try, but you can do it because it's been 30, 40 years since these things were made. They've been overanalyzed and synthesized to death. When something is actually made, like, I don't know, like, I don't pitch, like, how do you pitch Evangelion to somebody?
Every time we get a submission to our indie comic or our art promos, it's Evangelion, and we've had a few swings with some haikus at it, but it's like you say, some of these cultural fictions are very deep, and
Yep.
yours is, and yours is. And I think you can give snippets to entice, but when you actually begin reading one of your indie comics, it's clear that Josh and your good self have put in a heck of a lot of work. This isn't just a sit down and read a 32-page indie book, 12 more than a certain not so big two, just check with our legal team, not so big two book on cheaper paper. Generally, indie comics give better paper, more pages, and wow, you think, okay, this one's 32 issues, but when you actually get into it, you remember, actually, you know, when you back that, it wasn't 32 issues, Azrael, it was around about 80, and then if you're talking Godfoe, you're looking at about 176, and you're thinking, crikey, we're getting value for money here, but there's quality there with it, there's depth with it. In fact, you forget you're reading, you forget about concepts, and that's probably testimony to what Josh and your good self are forging. It's something unlike anything else in indie comics. It realizes the potential and spirit of indie comics, and you can see the way you grow into the series. And just got to say, while it's in our mind, or one of the 6 of our minds, is that the timeline is a beautiful thing. It's on your website, yeah. And we wish to put that in the presentation so that viewers now and in the future could see it. But you only have to go to Godfoe Universe's website and you'll see it. And you see these different eras of the overall Godfoe Universe epoch. And we think it's something we haven't seen before. And that shows that level of attention to detail, to lore that you have.
I appreciate that. I mean, people can go to the site, they can do the free to read, they can read what we call the Apocrypha, which is the Apollyon 20XX, Revelations, Lamentations, Incarnations, Incantations, and Invocations. And with this campaign for Biophile Kolga 2, everyone who orders anything, who backs anything, is getting the Biophile Kolga, or it's just going to be called the Biophile Codex, Book 1. And it's going to be about a 100-page novella, and it's Kolga's writings about Biophile Marcus, who is a person she worked with, and it's going to be his story told by her through the greater narrative of the initiative. And then there's going to be multiple ones of those. There's going to be Biophile Silius, Jalish the Zealot, which is going to be her writing about how she worked with him and her theory of witchcraft and praxis and how it all tied in with how they led this initiative. It's getting to a point where you don't have to read all these extra stuff, but like, why wouldn't you? And there's just I don't know what to tell you, man. Like it sounds arrogant, I know, but it's like we want to do what no one else is doing in indie or mainstream, which is giving people the reason people comics are what they are now in our culture is because they have people think about this. They have like 60 to 80 to 100 years of lore behind them. Going back to the elevator pitch, you can't give an elevator pitch of Batman. It's not going to be guy dresses up in a bat suit and fights crime. That's not Batman. That is the picture of him. Batman is a guy who suffered loss and trauma as a kid, who battles these horrific like versions of himself through his rogues gallery, who's a I don't know what to tell you. It's got, and then we have entire YouTube videos channels dedicated to comic book lore, and people want to pretend that indies or mainstream need to get everything down to a marketing demo. That's not how art works. Jack Kirby did not think of a marketing demo when he made New Gods. He was thinking of ancient Jewish lore.
Is thinking about that very page. He was quite a titan, actually, quite a book reader, and he knew his history, he knew his myths, and it comes across in the New Gods. You know, it's not just saying what you think it's saying. It's not just a superhero series. It's a little bit more than that. And the Godfoe series is a little bit more than just an indie comic.
Thank you. We're working hard to front load lore, and that's not to rush. It's just while Josh, the artist, he takes like 6 months to do 185 pages. Understandable, of course. What else could I be doing? I'm going to go write. I'm going to write free things for people to read. Big fat chunky books. We got a prose novel coming out next year that a friend of ours is reviewing for us right now. He's reading it. It's 300 pages or so. It's going to be what I think is a proper YA book, not Hunger Games, not any of that kind of stuff, like Treasure Island, Ender's Game, that kind of stuff. And if I have to say, this is kind of what I mean, a proper young adult male book. And I think people know what I mean by that. It just means that it doesn't involve a romance and a girl that has magical powers.
Yeah, just can't just do justice with that somehow. Tell you what, we've got a Scottish indie game dev. Speaking of indie, got a bit of indie. We have 5 Pillars.
Good to see you, man.
This is Scott, and he recently joined us at the 5 Pillars of Storytelling and fortifying our 4th pillar, gaming. And I think he hails from, well, I won't say where he hails from in Scotland. That might be private, but he's from Scotland. Don't want to dox him. Crikey, what we're doing. But hey, he
lives at
he's flying the flag for indie gaming, and I tell you what, his Vector game, Tron inspired, but you know, he's doing his own thing with it, and it's fast, it's furious. You can take down Vector bad guys, you can throw some disc,
nice.
Get it out your system, and he doesn't mind. He says, from Aberdeen.
Sure you are.
So, there we go. I hope he's all right later. The boys go around and see him. Scott's going to be fine.
Or as we call it now, Little Al Jazeera.
Yes. There you go. No problem, Scott. Tell you what, we're going to have to get Scott on the show sometime.
I'm making a video game as well for Biophile Kolga.
All right, tell Scott about it. We can have a little bit of an indie game dev chat. Go on, then. We'll just park ourselves.
Well, Scott, I'm not a great coder by any means. I used RPG Maker and a ton of plugins and a ton of tricks to break it, basically. And it's a top-down SNES dungeon crawler, half puzzle, half bullet hell. And I mean, I can send Kyle a quick playthrough of it if you want. If you want to show it on here today, we can. It doesn't matter to me. It should be done hopefully next year.
Tell you what, we might be nice to get a bit of put yourself a bit of a trailer to that.
Sure.
Put together, and we can feature the 5 Pillars of Storytelling. How does that sound?
Sounds good. And
that way, Scott can have a little look at it. Uzi Games 1185 from Aberdeen, Scotland. Great to have a Scottish indie game dev appear in the chat. And I tell you what, who knows? Maybe we can get him on the show real soon. Great to have you. And thank you very much for saying hi.
Nice.
Yes, I mean, yeah, it's just Tron Vectify. It really is something special. And it's almost like going back to those 8-bit home computer days where you just had people
nice.
like Jeff Minter, Tony Crowther, Andrew
Yeah.
Braybrook, you know, obviously Jeff Minter of Llamasoft, and Taki Mutant Camels, and Iridis Alpha, and Cipital, and you got Andrew Braybrook, who did the legendary Paradroid, which got a Zap Gold Medal. I mean, seriously, indie game devs going back there. We actually had gave a shout out for a female indie dev last night, our first one in a while, if ever, at the 5 Pillars of Storytelling. We couldn't resist for Creative Leader Saturday. So we like to do shout outs for each of the 5 pillars where we can, obviously with our particular focus on indie comics. Laser
awesome
as it is. Right then, here we go. So yes. Excellent. I don't code either. I use blueprint nodes, macros. Yeah, macros. We tried macros when we were doing our computer and RMA in computer animation. I tell you what, we had the beta version of XSI before it got bought and killed, and we were doing what can call it scripts for fluid dynamics to create an effect across a given piece of polygons. Yeah. And boy, I tell you what, we couldn't quite get our heads around it. Hey, Scott, anytime. You're welcome, sir. And thank you for being here. Right then, tell you what, shall we do a bit of trailer?
Go for it.
Let's do it, man. Let's see how this works. We've got to take the presentation off. I'm going to add this to the stage, and we're going to do, hopefully, this. Absolutely love that. Love that. What can we say? That is bone crunchingly good. Just getting into the zone there. That's kind of how we like it. Our ears are just going through redemption to listen to that. You know, you get a little bit of pop, and it's, you know, smooth radio. It's just a bit too smooth, and sometimes you just want that bit of crunch in your peanut butter. Very good stuff. Who did the trailer for it?
Josh.
Well done, Josh. To what Scott's saying, looks sweet.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, just absolutely. I tell you what, it just, you know, as you live and breathe, you know, you see. We like the. Tell you what, Scott and Dan. One thing we like about Josh's art on Kolga are these kind of our makeup-like style colors. There's that intensity to the greens, the purples, the pinks. It's almost heading towards a secondary color palette rather than a primary color palette. And a bit like what they did with the Master Higgins did in The Watchmen, that kind of secondary color palette makes the whole world seem just slightly surreal and off kilter. Was that intentional? The color, we call it color narrative. What do you call it?
I don't call it anything because I'm not an artist, but yeah, that's a good description for what Josh was going for. Like, and what we have learned working together, because we both own 50% of everything with Godfoe Universe. Literally the LLC, we own 50-50. I get total vetoing power over the writing. He gets total vetoing power over the art. Of course, we disagree sometimes and we listen to each other, but he does what he wants to do and I do what I want to do at the end of the day. And he is, like I said, he is 100% on board with how I view things and how I am with how he views things. We're very similar. He comes from that musical background as well, which I think is almost necessary to make good art nowadays. I think you have to come from the ethereal, indescribable, and inarticulate world of art and music to do what you just were referring to, which is a colorful narrative. That harmony and that blended. I know that's what color theory is, even though I don't know color theory. But yeah, 100%. Just everything Josh does like that is intentional, and he wanted to push the limits, particularly with Kolga 2. because we start seeing her consciousness in the O, which is the collective unconsciousness, basically, and that dreamlike surreality. And it's just that's what comics are for. I mean, comics should not be, to me, they shouldn't be like this weird 3D asset, blocky, boring digital colors thing. Like Josh uses digital colors, but he uses them well. And again, this I'm going off on a tangent and a rant, I know, but I
We
know
love
you.
tangents on this show. We can't help ourselves. Let's go for it, Dan. Tangent.
I know you'll understand this because I think everyone understands,
We
especially
will.
music guys. In music and in bands and in scenes, from everyone to like a 12-year-old playing guitar to like an 80-year-old man, you know what like a poser is, you know what punk rock is. When you're in comics and novels, for some reason, no one knows what that means. It's like, you know, when something is corporate slop and it sucks, and you know when something kicks you in the junk and it like lights your soul on fire. That's all I'm asking, is just to treat comics the same way people treat music.
Yes, Tim here in the chat is saying,
I
I
know
know
what
what
it
it means, and we know what it means, and Dan knows what it means. Do you know what? We think indie comics people know what it means. It's free spirits know what it means. It's
Yeah.
about expressing your own soul fire from the great ether and channeling it through a medium. It could be an indie comic. It could be, in Scott's case, an indie game.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, in Master Tim the Passion Olsen's case, you know, his Melvin character with that lovely silky interior art in the spirit of John Carter, Warlord of Mars. Yeah.
Nice.
It can mean different things to different people, but we're coming from the same ethereal place, channeling the great ethereal place. Just lift up your hand, close your eyes, or just feel it. Just feel it, and it will come. Yeah.
Well, it's like that scene in the famous Amadeus movie where you see him come in and he plays Salieri's piece that he's written, and it's not just that Mozart is a virtuoso. It's the way that expresses and comes out, and he's doing things with this piece that Salieri never considered. And that's not an intellectual exercise. That's a spiritual exercise.
Last night at the 5 Pillars of Storytelling in the early evening, before we got to the epic and a bit of I'm Spartacus, or as we say at the 5 Pillars of Storytelling, we're Spartacus, because in a collective of over 5,500 people, there is no I, there's only we. And, you know, all little bits and parts of it. And musicals, when we were younger, we thought, why have we got this really good story? Then it gets interrupted. And then the story starts again. Why are they singing? Why are they breaking out into voice? But when you get a bit older, you realize, yes, that's part of the convention of a musical. But also in real life, whether it's in the kitchen, you're making something to eat, or in the bathroom, or in the bedroom, moving swiftly on from that one, the idea that you can break out into song because it's an extension of how you're feeling, and you can break out into creativity because it's an extension of what you must do, of what you are compelled to do.
Yeah.
Kolga, Biophile Kolga 1. We've got this one. We're reading it. We're well into this. We didn't think we'd enjoy it quite as much. You know, just have a kind of feeling. As you know, we like the alt cover better than this one, but we're growing to like this one more. And once we got into it, that floating, cascaded, multi-tiered narrative had us at D.H. Lawrence. It just, we were floating down with an autumn leaf through each page. That's what we like, and that's what indie comics can be. And it's your version of indie comics. So, what's the story so far, Dan?
I can do a recap. The story so far is that Kolga has escaped a and I don't like using this term, but basically a magical interdimensional place called the Acolyte's Manor. And we'll get more into that as the series goes on. It's basically in the Codex, which everyone will get for free for backing Kolga 2. And she has with her a talking eyeball that can spew fireballs. And it sounds ridiculous, I know, and that's part of it. His name is Stu, which is he's a lot of the comedic relief, and his name is Stu because he learned that a name is what people call you, and he wanted to be called Stupendous. And he's funny until you realize he's an eldritch horror beyond your imagination, and he's just insane. So she escapes with him, and she's with her young ward June, and they are attacked by these masked figures that are under the control of a being called the Witch of Or that is from Kolga's past. They deal with them. They go home. Kolga is summoned to a meeting from the magistrate, and they're trying to take her. They're trying to take her mansion, and it's assumed, you can pick through the lines, that they know that she is doing things she shouldn't be doing that are outlawed in the world. They know she's engaging with witchcraft and this kind of stuff, and you kind of get the feeling that the magistrate himself is in on some of this stuff. And while that's happening, a cult steals Stu. They escape, get her, and then June and Kolga face down the Witch of Or, and you see that the Witch of Or and Kolga have a past. That's book 1. So we kind of wanted to do it. We write very much in what we consider like the more manga format, which is drop people into the world, and the world expands as you go. In Apollyon, we had a little more exposition in chapter 1, but I felt like that was 100% needed. And the reason to do it there is so it's over and done with. I think a lot of the problem with a lot of modern, especially comics, is the exposition. It kind of always is happening all the time, and story isn't really happening. Exposition is happening. And I think people know the difference between story and exposition. So story so far, Kolga is, you're seeing that threats from her past and her present are surrounding her. The world is closing in, and she's in possession of something she truly does not quite understand.
Absolutely. And yes, Apollyon, we were so into the beginning of that, and yes, you do explain things, but it's just part of the story, when things are happening, people are bound to ask questions, so they'll demand answers, and we can't say anything because there's so many unique things happening at the beginning of that in terms of what they do and how they communicate. Azrael says cryptically that we don't want to spoil it. It's something you have to read to find out for yourself. Weighing in at 176 pages, you're in for a real dark chocolate, 85% minimum cocoa on this. Just saying. Just before we continue with our Biophile first issue reprise, Scott's just saying, I'm a walking musical, much to my partner's dismay. We can imagine that in Bonnie, Scotland. That sounds very interesting. Hey, for us, it can be Calamity Jane, Oklahoma. Just, we're not going to do anything right now, just so we don't worry viewers. But
Scott, is it all bagpipes?
Hey, don't get us in the bagpipes. We'll be in floods of tears today. So yes, a walking musical. We like the sound of that one, Oozy Games. So right, let's continue with this reprise. Do you want to read the captions, or do you want us to movie voice it?
Movie voice it, please. I've got this weird southern drawl that I don't think is suited for radio.
Let's do it then. Biophile Kolga, the story so far. After escaping the Acolyte's Manor. Crikey, you're not going to be eating a fish finger sandwich while watching that piece of artwork. Battling a fanatical cult. And facing the Witch of Or herself. Biophile Kolga is back for more. Biophile Kolga, Godfoe Universe, Volume 2. Tell us about this cover. It's got everything we need from Josh.
Sure. Stylistically, Josh really pushed himself, particularly with the colors and the design. He kind of locked in a lot of the facial design for book 2. I think he wasn't quite satisfied with parts of book 1. The colors, that's just the beginning. Like when you look at book 2, it's vibrant, and that's probably the best word for it, vibrant and visceral. She has Stu, the Eye of the Fallen, right there in her head, which, I mean, I guess it's a spoiler for part of book 1, but whatever. It's not a big one. And shards of, again, from book 1, the Witch of Or's mask. And that plays a very key part in this. And book 2 kind of blows the world open a little bit. You learn things about Kolga, things about June, and things about the world. You get some answers and even more questions. And I don't want to spoil too much with it, but we get to see a little bit more history of who she is right before we get a bigger question of like, oh God, who is she? Like, and the cover, I think, really, really displays that well. A central theme for Kolga is masks, not just for the magic system, if we have to use that term, but for the character study itself. And every single character in Biophile Kolga has a multi-layered mask in some degree.
So it could be a metaphor for our the myth of ourselves.
Yeah,
the layers of ourselves, the moods.
Yeah.
Who are we today? Are we wearing 365 masks a year, with a different 365 mask another year as we age with experience?
Well, the I hate to say using magic system, but the magic system in Apollyon with intentions, understanding, that's the same one in Kolga. It's just that the way people interact with that magic system has been amplified and different. So it's not only your intentions of yourself and your understandings of yourself, but every single person's viewpoint of every single person at all times forever. It's a sea that she describes it as a sea that we're all drowning in, and she and herself and a few others are just aware that they're drowning. Again, going kind of back to that Gnostic idea, she realizes, she knows she's wearing a mask, metaphorically. Everyone else is as well, even when they know they are, even when they know they aren't. And people are putting masks on each other at all times.
Almost like a resonant sea, almost like the energy wave that travels across the water of the sea, which makes it appear as if they're waves in shape.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
I think so. And a lot of it, I'm laughing at, I know I'm laughing at having to sell my own product, but it's like, it's a character study of an old woman engaged in a philosophical debate with the world and the nature of the god of the world who's been given a new life and is fighting it. This is not the Hunger Games. I don't know how to say it. It's just, I know that's funny. It's just, if you're trying to sell this hip young thing to kids, it's like, this is a very long, deep character story, but there's wizards and there's magic.
a Phoenix journey, Joseph Campbell style,
So.
There are two things, aren't there? There's one movie, but it becomes two movies depending on whether a child watched that musical or that epic, or whether an adult watched the very same movie. There are different layers to
That
truth.
is brilliant. That is a brilliant analogy.
And it's Frasier. When we first watched Frasier, we thought, this will never catch on. This is a boring show about a radio show DJ. What could be funny about that? But obviously, years later, when you hit the age of 29 and so forth, and you stop counting, the joke's on you.
Yeah.
The gods throw you the banana. God throws you the banana skin with an icy stare.
Your words are poetry.
Well, thank you. Thou art Godfoe yourself. Now then, well, just describe this page to us. We've taken some of the interior art from your crowdfunders.
Mm-hmm.
How's this page doing?
Without spoiling anything, this is a scene of the magistrate from book 1, saying the word witches, and of course, I mean, that's more narrative to it than that. Below him, as you see a older version of the Witch of Or's mask, and below that you see a witch named First. And what you get in and this isn't a spoiler, but in the beginning of volume 2, it starts with the Witch of Or who I believe mentioned that she was her another name she had was Flesh of the Facade Sister 5. And she's calling out to her sisters who are Flame, Flood, Flux, and Flora, and begging to be heard, to plead her case with them. And she's all torn up, and she's basically almost nothing after her fight with Kolga. And replacing the monologue, Kolga's monologue of this book, is the witches' conversation with each other over all the action. And you get a kind of understanding of the theory behind the witches, their life, and how they view each other and how they view the world. So you're going to see a lot more of the mask and a lot more of the magic, but more importantly, you're going to see these different peripheral characters that almost interact as archetypes. They're human to some degree, but the way that they treat the world and the way they are the world is much more instinctual and much more primal than a human would reason. They don't really reason like humans do. They reason kind of like, even like archons would. Of there's an order to things, we operate a certain way, and this is how things are.
Is it, a couple of points, is it about the unseen as much as it is the seen? Because allegedly Tesla once said that we'll understand more about one another and about the world and the alleged universe when we can understand what we can't see.
Oh yeah, and that's a big. What's funny is that this is what's funny, Cal. When I come on here, you get very close to things I'm not going to reveal for like years down the road.
We feel you, Dan. We feel the Godfoe. That's what we can say.
You really do, because a major storyline of the novel that's coming out next year, which takes place at the end of the series, is the last series that's going to be in the Godfoe universe. It follows a boy named Garo, who is what they call a seer, and what he is he can see He can see the intentions of every single person at all times, and he can see what they call the voice of God, which is this SEA of O flowing over the world, powering machines, and also the collective unconscious all in one. And that's the thing, is up until then, everything that deals in that is unseen. Yeah, you're landed, like you're throwing the horseshoe pretty close.
We thought we'd throw one or two horseshoes your way, just be gently, but we want you to know we've read a little bit of both books, and I'll tell you what, it's nice not to completely read it, because we view indie comics as a box of dark chocolates, like a black magic box of chocolates, a brand that we shouldn't be publicizing chocolate brands on this show. We don't get paid for it. Oh, here we go. One second. Just go back there a second. Scott's saying this is deeper than Dune. Well, we try our humble best on this show. Dan's, shall I say, lighting those phoenix embers so that we can hold on to our Western civilization. Some might say it's by mere threads or by our fingertips, but to tell you what, if anything to say about it, Dan has. We're going to be A-OK.
Scott, Dune is a major influence, and you'll pick that up, especially on the novel that comes out next year. Because I mean, I started it as kind of inspired by Dune. I even went out of my way to add like an ocean of desert to it, and it's what inspired the idea of the shadows, which are these living suits that are actual visceral living beings and conscious beings. So Dune the book series, not the horrendous Villeneuve or whatever his name is movies, which I can't even bear to watch. And I will put a flag on a mountaintop and say that I do not think that guy was the right guy to direct Dune.
We remember the Sting version.
Well, have you seen the Sci-Fi Channel original series version?
Go on.
Yeah, there's a Sci-Fi Channel series made in like early 2000s, I think. It's 4 hours long, and it's fantastic. It's just Shakespearean campy enough in its acting and dialogue, but it does the books better service than any of the other movies. It's fantastic.
We grew up with camp. There's a fine tradition of it back when camp just meant camp. Mm-hmm. And the Batman series and stuff like that, where you had a bit of tongue in cheek, you know what I mean? And obviously when you're younger, you take these things very seriously, but again, it's the idea that you can go through the ocarina of time
Mm-hmm.
and have a different understanding of it as an adult. But also you can look back through the lens of the ocarina at the time and have another opinion on what was going through your understanding of it at the time. So it's one pass, two pass, and back through the time travel. You get a third pass, perhaps even more, if you want to really go into the depths of the sea of enlightenment. You realize that it's multifaceted. It's just not one pass, two pass. You go back through time and think, oh, right. But you know what? You can have a different point of view of, well, that was just that looking back. But part of us always feels like, I like the way we experienced that at the time, and that's going to be our abiding memory of it. That
Mm-hmm.
fondness of, we don't know, seeing Star Wars for the first time, or Batman for the first time. Not old enough, folks, to remember the actual 60s Batman at its birth, but we did get let's just say we got it later. Right, here we go. It should still be free to watch on YouTube. We'll have to have a little look at that. The Dune miniseries, yeah?
Yep, it's 4 hours longer, so it's fantastic.
Tell you what, that sounds cool. Might give that a go. And the sequel, Children of Dune, they did star a young Dave McLevoy.
I don't know how to spell his name. I took a stab at it.
Hey, I tell you what, we're going to go with yours for the time being.
Yep.
The Uzi Games saying thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
What a bit of Dune watching. Sounds like Scott. That's one of Scott's things. Hey, we watched a bit of Dune. We liked it. We like things that are their own thing. Godfoe is its own thing.
Yeah.
We like the fact that, however you spell his last name. Yes. And here we go. Another fellow Scott, says Scott at Uzi Games 1185. I'll tell you what. And Scott is a fellow Scott, a brother. Our heart belongs to Scotland. Down the west side, I know you're on the east side with Aberdeen. Been there, picked up a Mazda MX-5 Mark 1 from there, from a guy called, I think it was Tom, and he put the hard top on for us from inside his house. And went all the way down in this convertible. I tell you what, stuck to the road like glue. All the corners, all the curves, absolutely beautiful. No, was it Mark 1? No, it wasn't a Mark 1. It was Mark 2, and it got totaled 3-4 months later when somebody had too much Christmas sherry, went into the side of us at a junction, and so we eventually got the Mark 3, and that was nice. But we've got very fond memories of driving down the Mazda MX-5 Mark II from Aberdeen. So you're in a nice part of the country there, Scott. Yes. So there you go. Sweet, that would have been a fine drive Dune past Dundee. Yes, indeed it would have been. Yeah, unfortunately got totaled off. We enjoyed that one more than the Mark III. It came later. But we have to say, actually, we still got good memories of the Mark III. Actually, it's a very smart motor, and we went to pick it up with our guiding star, and a lovely drive back from an English city, from the middle part of England. So yes, but the Mark II is notable. Just that lovely memory of driving it all the way down from Aberdeen. We caught the train up, paid him the 1,300 in cash it was, and we drove it all the way back down. So train right across the Forth Bridge, by the way, Scott, which was beautiful. It's like being suspended in air as you travel across, like a floating Azraelian train that just floats. It's just the way the Forth Bridge is. It just feels like you're floating on air. It's great stuff. So anyway, right, let's get back to Biophile Kolga. So tell us what's happening in this page.
In that page, Kolga is reconstructing herself within the O after being torn apart by a villain. And Stu has been taken from her, ripped apart, and thrown up into this mountainside up here. And if people have read Biophile Kolga 1, they'll recognize that mountain is what this thing that the witch called First is talking to at the end of the book, the end of chapter 1, and at the end of the book itself. So that's why all these beautiful colors here by Josh and this kind of this skeletal figure that was Kolga's body is being destroyed. The thing about O is the people who live in the world, they use it for everything. It's the electromagnetic grid of Earth at this point, and it's also a spiritual force as they see it. So what is happening here is she has entered into the intentions of all people at all times. And think of it as music. As when you play a note, you're getting every frequency, but that fundamental, that lowest one is the note you actually hear. That's how the voice of God works in this series. That is the lowest frequency. So what is she interacting here is a level of consciousness where she can't lie and can't hide, and everything about you is laid bare before this figure named God.
Yeah. One voice, one breath kind of thing, yeah?
Yep.
That particular resonant frequency. We meant to ask this a bit earlier. Is Josh evolving?
Is Josh evolving? Oh, absolutely. He was already a great artist. He's always been a great artist. The thing is, he's dialing in his own creations. He did have, I mean, he's expressed this. He had some slight qualms with how he did parts of book one. But I mean, he's an artist. He's the one that made it. I have albums I've made that I wish I could improve parts on. That's how everything is. And I think Alan Moore himself said, if you're satisfied with your art, you didn't make good art. And I think Josh, I'm not trying to be biased. I would, even if he was my friend, which he is, he's my best friend. If I didn't like his art, I wouldn't work with him. I mean, that's how art is, and especially how musicians are. Like, we're pretty ornery people, especially when it comes to working with other people. I think I dare say Josh could very much establish himself as a very unique artist as the time goes on. I think he already has, and I think I've got so many thoughts about all this. You asked the best questions, Kyle. I think the only way as an artist to grow is to take a vision you have and keep pushing it. I think a lot of the modern world and a lot of the ideas of things is to take something that already exists and put your spin on it and then drop it. And it's like the only way to know how good you are at a sport or a skill is to do it 100% and push it to the end. And the only way to know yourself as an artist is to do that with your art.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you think, and we often say this with special guests on the show and creative leads on the show as you are tonight, and our first ever guest come back for some more Phoenix Burn.
Anytime.
And you know what? It's indie comics aren't about just following yet another tribe. It's a tribe of tribes. It's a wide frontier. You can pitch your tent, your stake in your plot of land anywhere and define your writing ideas, your art style, your lettering style, how you put the comic book together. Decide you're going to offer 176 pages rather than the rather modest 20 pages on baking paper. Can we get away with saying that?
Mm-hmm.
We're on the line there, but we can. We got away with that one. And you can define, for example, we have a guy on this show, he's been on once or twice. His name's Robert Rodriguez of White Owl.
Mm-hmm.
One word, White Owl, which is like the Batman of indie comics, but it's very personal story, and you'd have to read it to find out. It's only £2 or £3, and he's on his third issue already. I had to get a new artist for it, but he puts the colors down, the flats, yeah, but then he's particularly obsessive about color grading. I don't know about you, Dan, but Marvel, I shouldn't say the words, but let's call it Team Blue and Team Red, both alleged opposition. Yet, funnily enough, we went to see Superman, and then we did this big long monologue at the 5 Pillars of Storytelling, looking at the ground as we said it, because we don't want to be unkind. We want to be graceful. It's one of our mottos on the show is that we are graceful, gentle, and generous, always, especially at the 5 Pillars of Storytelling on X. And we even get Grok to give us a scorecard. And if we can't score 5 out of 5, we're not trying hard enough. And we thought it was interesting that the Superman movie had teal and mustard, Orange Jumper Day, yeah, at the
Yeah.
Daily Planet, and the Fantastic Four movie, which we decided not to see based off the Superman movie, because we thought we'd waited 5 years through the Darkness Wars to actually go and see a movie. And well, we can't go into all the reasons why we didn't. A dark path that is. But also the Fantastic Four movie also has teal and mustard. And we thought, well, independent comics such as Dan or Roberto Rodriguez of White Owl, his color grading is nothing like that. It's full of what's appropriate for his book. At White Owl, there's scorching, beautiful, radiant sunsets, the joy of discovering your powers, and the color palette reflects that. Yeah, it's not National Orange Jumper Day, you know. And here, you've got your own color narrative rules. You know, it's if you're dealing with matters of the subconsciousness, there's almost going to be something psychedelic and the premises of Godfoe and Biophile Kolga are to a large degree existential. So why are we just going to use teal or mustard when there's a beautiful secondary palette that's not oft used? Or why can't we, you're in the bath, don't worry folks, don't worry about where this is going, but close your eyes and pour some water, some warm water from the water jug on your eyelids. What do you see? That's what you see.
Oh yeah, and a lot of that is shaped by. We could talk about this for like 6-7 hours, man. Like, I didn't sleep as a kid. I had horrific night terrors and night sleep paralysis and that kind of stuff. So I just wouldn't sleep. I'd like pretend to go to sleep and then stay up all night and then sleep during school because school sucks. But all that to say is, like, I know exactly what you're talking about, and especially when you don't sleep for a while, you go into this kind of in between phase of realities that I assume is very similar to psychedelics. And it's one reason I never did psychedelics, because I figured my brain was fried enough as it was. But I don't think that that's a silly trope. I don't think the psychedelic colors and that idea of, I mean, the 60s made sense for what they were. It was when LSD became popular, and like those colors made sense. And how else do you, what you just described, like that's such a beautiful idea. Like, pretend you're in the bath, pour like the water on your eyes. That, I think, is the perfect synthesis of what I think art is, of like the intangible and the divine with the mundane, and you come together, and it's like it's flesh and spirit. And if I have to be cheesy about it, flesh and spirit. But I think what the way you're articulating that is what Josh and I reach for in everything, is it's that idea of the visceral and like the divine.
You said it. It's as above, so below.
Yeah,
Below, so above. The great divine lake. Now, Scott's here, been very kind and generous with his, graceful with his words.
Yes, thank you.
He's a lovely guy. If you get a chance to follow him on X, he's got his I Retina Scorch racer Cyberdrifter, which is, you got to see it. We think we're giving that a play sometime. His art is wonderful. It must be so difficult to get into someone else's head and extract the info required for a complementary image. Yeah, and if you've got a writer, an artist and writer that can actually dance together, in that waltz, that creative waltz, and you've got that alchemy, that synergy, that synaptic bridge link between the two of you, and he happens to be best friend as well. That's the best of all worlds, isn't it? It's clear that Dan and Josh and Dan have a brotherhood, and it's one thing that really stood out for us on that very first show. It's one of the few things we can remember about that chat. Obviously, the depth of Dan's authority in terms of Western civilization, history, eras, and how he uses that to inform his work, but also the bridge he has with Josh, and the fact that Josh has a very distinct style, and why not everybody has to draw like Dan Mora.
Mm-hmm.
They can draw like Josh. And if we were a teenager born again in the fire, we'd draw like Josh. And he seems to capture that energy of a teenager, but with that evolving spirit. He's like nothing else in indie comics. We'd say, treat yourself, get yourself a mountain of pages, and just drown in this God Machines chaos. And it's got an art style like no other. It's got color. It's got existential ideas. It's got everything the commercial rinse and repeat hasn't got. It's got life, spark. If it's embers, it's a phoenix being born out of those fires of 70 years. Been there, seen it, done it. Absolute, you know who? We'd say if you want some absolute, this is absolute Godfoe Universe. Now, Dan, enjoying a bit of that. Thank you. He has a full artistic vision of what I write for the most part. I trust him. That's your word there. When you have that chemistry with somebody, whether it's your wife, husband, your best friend, your creative partner in that waltz. Thank you. He has a full artistic vision of what I write for the most part. I trust him to do what he thinks is best, and that's perfection. That's what you want from a creative partner. Great comment, Scott. Cool to give Josh some flowers and praise. Josh, as we would say, is his own man art-wise, and the fruits of that are being born in Biophile Kolga and the Godfoe Universe. Scott saying, I get sleep paralysis and head explosion syndrome, both fun. I tell you what, it sounds like we might have to get you on the show sometime, Scott, and delve deeper. You sound like you're a pretty interesting guy. Scottish indie game dev. That's just what we want. Not all the game developers are in America. In fact, in the UK, especially during the Commodore 64 8-bit wars, as we call them, we have a fine tradition of UK coders like Minter, Crowther, Braybrook, who came up with some legendary computer games. And it's nice to see that people like Scott and our recent female follower are taking things back to the light, back to the roots of almost bedroom game development. Once upon a time, it was almost like we'd gone past that, and there's great big movie teams now required to make these uber hit games. But arcade games live and breathe. Hello, right there. So yeah, we can't wait to give Cyberdrifter a go.
It looks great. I'm looking at it now on his X. This looks like something that would have destroyed my mind when I was like 10 or 11 or 12. Like I'd have played this so much, my mom would have had to take it away from me.
But isn't that the kind of era in where we can almost be back as creatures of faith, of almost purity and innocence, to go back to the things that we used to like, that are less jaded, less cynical, more sense of fun, that we're not aware of all the heavy chains, to borrow an ecclesiastical chapters. Careful, Azrael, you're on thin ice there, son. I'm going to say no more. But sometimes in life, things can get a little bit heavy with chains, in terms of, with great power comes great responsibility. And it's nice sometimes, I guess, for gentlemen and the ladies to be born again and enjoy things that we used to enjoy, with that pure eye. And we can still remember walking into arcades. We remember our first Commodore 64. We can remember playing Boulder Dash with pushing rocks, collect the diamonds, get out the cave before the timer runs out. And that is our all-time favorite game. I mean, no amount of Call of Duty is changing that. No amount of amazing graphics is going to change that. It's laser burned into indelible memories. Here we go. What's Scott saying? Laugh out loud. Thank you. Retro. Yes, a bit of retro. We like a bit of retro around here. Can't help ourselves.
Well, it's
Oh,
going into what you can't you harping on Western civilization. Like the thing is, good things stand the test of time, and that's a reason you mentioned Ocarina of Time earlier. And what's funny is I'm going back through all the console Zelda games with my daughter right now, and and she's 5 years old, and we finished Ocarina of Time, she just wept at the title screen, and
oh,
she wasn't crying that it was over. It's just like her like little brain had never experienced a narrative like that and in that way, and it's like, oh, this is she's not gonna she can never ever articulate that feeling for the rest of her life. Even when she goes back and plays it later when she's older and she understands more of the narrative and the story, you don't. I think the whole point of those things is that you can't articulate them, because if you could, they'd be less than.
yeah.
And that's getting into it. You brought up alchemy earlier. That's getting into a hermeticist and Gnostic idea of God. Of like, oh, God is nothing, and he's not a person because he couldn't be, because then it wouldn't be. And I understand that. I think that's a brilliant idea. I think that's a beautiful idea. And I don't know, man. I agree. What Scott just said. An emotional response is the biggest achievement. That I think that is, if I have to say, art has a point. That is the point of art. It's not to think. It's not to. It's not to stimulate. It's not to. It's to feel. And someone described. It was a great description. I forget what it was, but they used to say Tool was the thinking man's metal band. And someone's like, no, I think it was maybe a Rolling Stone journalist or something, if I had to give them credit, said like Tool is the feeling man metal man band. And I think that distinction is true. I think that's, I don't know. No one thinks about Iron Maiden or Judas Priest. You feel it, and that's why you love it.
Absolutely. It's all about the feeler. It's
Yeah.
all about the feeler. Absolutely. Scott's on fire in the chat tonight. All about the feeler. Absolutely. Absolutely. We say so. We say so. That's a great comment. What's going off on this page then, Dan?
Here, the villainous magistrate is using, and this is a spoiler, but I don't care if it's for book one. We learn at the end of book one, he has an eye himself embedded in his chest that has three pupils. And what is happening here is he's manifesting one of the three O spirits that he controls to read the memories of June, the ward of Kolga, her trainee and ward that she takes care of.
I'll tell you what, the, the last time we really did biotype stuff narratively was Guyver,
Yep, Josh is
because
a huge fan of Guyver.
now we really are getting into Siamese twins territory. Separated by time and space, brother Dan. We hear you. And also the nemesis of that were very much of Guyver, were those insectoid style creatures bioengineered in the labs and that, and some of them had longer lives, some burnt brightly but shorter candles in terms of their lives. And one had a certain window to defeat Guyver before it melted away. No spoilers, we hope. And Guyver got really roughed up that day, and even shocked us. We thought, crikey, what on earth is this? We're really getting. We'd watched manga growing up, and didn't realize it wasn't manga. We fondly remember Marine Boy and his riding around on his little dolphin. God bless him. And obviously, Battle of Planets with G-Force and Zoltar. Hey, I think we liked Zoltar in a way that was probably inappropriate. I think she was a bad girl. Anyway, less about our preferences. Like Linda Carter and Wonder Woman too, of course. We're obviously a good guy at heart, yeah. So yeah, and so it's it's interesting and intriguing to come to something with this biological edge. Was that intentional? Is it about how the world can mutate beyond the divine law, beyond the natural, and how, if we're not careful, it's almost like a kind of dark metaphor, and these dark motifs for, if we're not careful, we can go down a really dark path, and you can see it with AI in general. And you can only wonder what's in all those labs in the 100 miles of secret networks that the elites don't have underneath a certain big country.
Oh yeah, 100%. And the lore of Apollyon, especially the Apocrypha, where it goes into that in great detail. And in Apollyon Revelations, there's a thesis written by a character called Desire and Disgust, subtitle The Infant. And he goes into a very deep understanding of that idea of Imperial metal, which is the metal that lands on Earth in Apollyon and starts all of this, the God Machine. And he goes into a whole thesis and hypothesis of, has it landed before? Do our myths come from this? Why are the elites, why do they repeat these same kind of things? If you look at the interbreeding of man and creatures and the Nephilim ideas from the Jewish Apocrypha, and compare it to cloning or some of the Epstein stuff we had, and you see these kind of routinely things like like the Tower of Babel and AI. These motifs of human history keep happening for some reason. We keep having God kings, and I'm not using that as a meme against like our president, the Noob Kings protest or whatever. I'm saying like there were actual guys who thought they were gods and kings and were treated as such, and that's where. And this is not me proselytizing. Like I said, I am a Christian, but if you read Revelation in a vacuum, even, and you read what John writes, and you approach it from a historical view and a psychological view of humanity, you're like, how did this guy write the greatest analysis of empires ever? With the idea of the Antichrist, of this thing that elevates itself above all things and it puts a mark on people that can't buy or sell. And of course, he'd seen that with certain Caesarean rulers before. But you see that pattern happen over and over and over and over all throughout history. And the way it happens and the way he describes it, that either this guy was divinely inspired or he was tripping on this island of Patmos somehow and he touched the collective unconsciousness of human depravity. But I don't think there's a separation between myth and science. I don't think there's a separation between the new world and the old world, except how we contextualize truths that exist. And what you're saying, there are very dark things that can happen. Like, my goodness, we're full of microplastics now for some reason. Like, our grandparents never would have, like, what do you mean? What is a microplastic and how was it in you? Like, how did that happen? And the idea with Apollyon and Kolga is Imperial metal has come, and it's called that because it replicates itself over any biosystem. By the time of Kolga, they call it old metal, which is a slang for old metal, and it's everywhere. It's the only ore they have, and it's what the voice of God is, what O flows through everywhere. And what it has done is literally change the biological makeup of man to be a slave of this God figure. So the physical structure, this old metal, and the energy that results from it, O, are one. The body and the soul are one. And this is like a modern right-wing talking point, I think, where someone will say the purpose of a system is what it does. And I understand that from a political, theory standpoint. I think it's a good critical theory, way of viewing power, viewing a system. I don't think that's 100% true, but in this case, the magic system, I have to say, of Biophile Kolga is an amplified version of Apollyon, which is the postmodern view of power. No truth, no purpose, no meta-narrative, just power. And Kolga is particularly a critique of that idea, a meta-critique of our world's view of that, because she actually lives in it. And she lives in a Gnostic locked cycle of power, of postmodern power, and she's striving for something outside of that.
Yeah.
I'm saying a lot of stuff, but all that to say, with and what this man is in this picture is pulling memories unwillingly from another person. The dark truth of this power system, though, is that he could not do that if she did not allow him on some level. And I'm tying that in, which I know you do, with the esoteric kind of magic idea. And that's an esoteric magical idea, magic with a K, like Alan Moore, is that's how intentions work, especially in chaos magic. This idea that everyone has an intention, and that's what allows things to happen. And that's tied in with pop culture. The vampire can't come in your house unless you allow them,
I'm sorry.
which that's a pretty good metaphor for what you're living through over there.
A great many things.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's great, really. It's even better than it used to be. That's boilerplate. We had to read that. Yes. Okay.
I thought maybe I could say it. I don't want you to.
Yeah, you've got something called the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment.
Well, we just call it guns, but yeah.
Well, that too. We have the Magna Carta, but we don't have the other thing you talked about that begins with G.
Yeah.
Say the G word. No, we can't say the G word, but we can say G. So anyway, let's move to the next slide. He says, moving swiftly on. Now, we like this one too, because speaking of that person who needs your permission in order for him to help you get out of there. We don't give any of the plot away, but we've enjoyed reading this. I think we're up to about page 60, 72, something like that, and right. We're going to enjoy reading the rest of it. It's like its own trade paperback, and
it's a big boy.
It's just, I'll tell you what, one day we're not sure the digital versions will suffice. I think one day we've said this to my reckoning, that we're going to be back for the paper editions.
I'll find a way to get it to you.
And we think it's too good, it's too unusual, thank you, Dan. It's the one book that's doing existential out there, and we're trying to think of another, and it doesn't come to mind. It's got the bedrock of somebody who's building their universe on a foundation of truth, and if it isn't the truth, you're going to get as close as you can. Now, tell us about Apollyon X, because we thought we can't talk about Biophile Kolga 2 and not chat about this Apollyon 20X. We've hinted at it that we're enjoying it, but it's best if it comes from your mouth.
Sure. So Apollyon 20XX or 2000, however you want to call it, doesn't matter to me, it takes place arguably between our world and maybe 100 years in our current future. We leave it very vague. And what it is the story of a metal called Imperial metal. We call it that because it replicates itself all over everything it touches. Think of it like a symbiote of sorts, if you had to. Has landed on Earth, and global elites somehow acquired 99.99% of it. They somehow knew what it was when it landed and got it in a group called the Order, which is, not how politicians and people who run our world are now doing esoteric sacrifices and horrific things to people. They get it, and they want to build a god machine, a machine to control the minds of every single person. And they're doing that by putting Imperial metal into everything. Food, sharp things that go on your body you can't say on YouTube, water, name it. And the reason is because Imperial metal, we learned this in volume 3, spoiler, whatever. Volume 3 is it works on a power dialectic. Whenever Imperial metal comes in contact with any biological system, including another part of itself, a biological battle ensues, and a conscious one, and it dominates. That's what it does. So by putting Imperial metal into everything and everyone, they're building a god machine that can influence the thoughts and intentions and wills of everyone on the planet. They created that by having a series of experiments that they called augments, which are basically our world's mutants, if we have to say that. Every person's power comes from a type of Imperial metal that was put in their body and shaped part of them somehow. This figure at the front here is Zero. He has escaped. He was a prime candidate for the god machine because it requires an augment of a certain type of ability and power of influencing will to be in it to amplify it. He escapes and rallies with him these 5 figures and the dog to fight against the Order. Now that's the elevator pitch story. What actually happens is that you get a much different story than that. We usually call it X-Men meets Akira. It's a very apocalyptic. It's not it is not play by play easy to understand in that regard. It takes a lot of left turns, and what you learn is that the figures that Zero has amassed together have all shared some kind of trauma from ideological possession. They have seen what happens when mass swarms of people or groups of people are all controlled by an idea. And what you come to see is that Zero can influence ideas
Yeah.
and he can influence intent. And the idea is that ideas are not just harmless things. And it is like the term O and that kind of idea doesn't exist yet, but it's the proto of that. And what you learn through like the way Imperial Metal is influencing things is that that web of the human consciousness is starting to form over the world.
Yes.
And again, the postmodern view of everything as power, that's what the world now has become. It's basically a zero-sum game of who can influence who the most. We call that politics now.
Yes.
So they escape. They help Zero fight this being called the Denominator. I'm not going to ruin it for you too much, but a battle ensues.
I haven't got time bit yet.
They encounter a being called the Denominator, and that ends. And in volume 2, you pick up from there and go. I don't want to spoil too much, but if you're, I like how you've sold it. I appreciate that. It's very existential. It is very much like I don't know. I think that American comics. I think we make fun of them, especially Alan Moore. I love to make fun of Alan Moore with his magic with a K, and his grumpy old man nature, and the fact that he predicted the wrong dystopia for his own nation. It's
pretty close to where we're sitting, but move swiftly on. Keep going.
Well, the wrong direction it came from but his idea and his frustrations with comics, I think, were 100% justified. And the reason I think we can say that now is because they are replicated in comics now and indie comics. I think what him and Moore did, or Moore and Miller were doing, of trying to give a definitive beginning, middle, end to characters, mythologicalize them, or even magicalize them, if I have to use that phrase, and esotericize them, I think was the right direction.
Yeah.
And that's what Josh and I wanted to do and we didn't create this in mind, but when we got done with Apollyon scripting it, we're like, well, what if X-Men mattered? that's the arrogant way we sell Apollyon to people. Is like, imagine X-Men, but it actually matters.
It actually matters because it's part of the existential struggle to survive.
Yeah.
And we still have it ingrained in our head how they come together at the beginning, he says cryptically, and how that is engineered through a certain character, and how each one has their own unique metal-based abilities as a byproduct, different tiers, call them classes, but just different perhaps. And we thought, this is interesting. This isn't like anything else. We've talked about X-Men almost like future past, yep. But this is you're there in this future, this dystopian future, and it does matter.
You're in the jungle, baby.
Very much in the Godfoe jungle, absolutely. And it felt as the story. Another phrase we'd use is organic, and jungles are organic, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you've got your own set of rules, and it's organic. You feel like it's going to. You're not entirely sure. Going into that yet another iteration of Superman movie, we were checking our watch at the 3/4 mark. We weren't doing that with Godfoe Universe. At the very least, we weren't sure what was happening next, and that's the perfect compliment, isn't it? Because you're on you're drowning in this existential sea, and you think, so be it. You've crossed the Rubicon. You've actually gone past the first page, and you know, it is like nothing else, you know. But pray continue, sir.
I appreciate that, and that's all we ever wanted from art, and in particularly comics, is like there's something about like the manga Akira, which everyone should know. If you don't, When you pick up Akira, you're in Akira. You are in that world. There's no references to anything else. It's very visceral in that it feels like you put blinders on. And that's what good art is. And that, I think as we get older in particular, you're distracted. And it's not called social media. It's just that's how your brain is. Your brain, like biologically, you're more acute and aware of dangers, especially if you're a parent. You hear things that you know the slightest crack over there, you're like, oh God, the baby's fallen. Little things like that. But when you play Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask for the first time, you're in that world. And that's the terrifying reality of children is their ability on a biological, meta, spiritual level to put themselves into something.
And that's the purity we were talking about earlier, to get back to being that and being able to experiences of the world with that purity.
I 100% agree. And the problem is the idea of deconstruction is you're taking that world and you're pulling it into your world. Narnia works because they go to Narnia. Harry Potter works, and we can argue whether she was a great writer or not. I think she pulled it off. I think she was good. And the reason it doesn't feel like some crappy urban fantasy, Harry goes to that world.
Yeah.
Urban fantasy says that world comes to me. And that's not how that's not how it works. Again, I think Narnia is the best example of it. I've never had this discussion before till you, Kyle, but it's
love it. C.S. Lewis, this acolyte and the disciple right here.
Oh, likewise. Maybe one day I'll actually understand that hideous strength, even though we're living in it.
Keep going. You're talking C.S. Lewis. We're listening.
Yeah, well, it's that idea of, and that's what happens at the end of Apollyon. I can't spoil it because you wouldn't believe me if I told you what happens. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, not in a Marvel MCU way, but in scope, and it becomes apocalyptic, and it borderlines the mystical and the magical, not to the degree that hideous strength is. We don't have Merlin come in and save the day, which is brilliant when he does it, but it's the start, it's the end of our world and the birth of the Godfoe universe, and that what is mundane and divine start to mix, and the world becomes remystified.
Yes.
And I mean, this is a spoiler of some degree, but the beginning of Volume 4 is the epistles writing from the Lamentations of the Apocrypha, where the man called the Blitzbeast is writing these these 6-chapter letters to the different people remaining. It's going to be that illustrated. That's going to be Volume 4. That's going to be the beginning of it. And we're kind of probably going to do that more in a Cerebus style. We've talked about Cerebus before with the big pillar of text, and then that.
Love it.
Yeah, and then it jumps into something of a shorter, condensed kind of Canterbury style tales idea of each character where they are now. They come together, and then it goes from there. I don't want to say too much, but Apollyon, I've thought about it a lot, and I hate sounding so anti, but the problem I think with most stories is we became self-aware of them, and I think postmodern stories did that. The whole point is you make fun of the mystification idea, and even Saga does that. That's why I couldn't finish reading it. And it's even I liked The White Knight and Curse of the White Knight, but the Joker in that is just he's a meta narrative on the Joker. It's like I don't need that. I need a mystified. So I need a fairy tale. Just give me a fairy tale.
Grimm's Brothers. I need a fairy tale. Get me out of the real world. I don't want to escape to the real world. The whole point of fiction, of fantasy, and fairy tales is that we escape from the real world just for a little while, for our sanity, if nothing else.
Well, we know why that was dealt away with, because you can't politicize fairy tales. If you make them more and more and more like our world, you can politicize them. And that's where we get this idiotic and demonic phrase, art is political. It's not. It can be, and we call it propaganda. That's a term for that.
I remember seeing your debate on X, and obviously when we have politics section religion on X, we at the 5 Pillars of Stone, we don't go anywhere near it. But we have to say we had a little twinkle in our eye when we watched your debates. That's all we can say.
I sound way meaner on X than I mean to. I don't mean to. I mean, some people I have downright told off, but whatever. Like that's the southern part of me. That's what won the war for us, right? Which war you can guess because we only won one.
Don't take Dan's KFC. It's going to go. There's going to be a throwdown. Right then, Apollyon 20XX. You going to read this, or am I doing the movie voice?
You know what? You've done it a lot. I'll read this one. Why not?
Go for it, Dan.
I don't get to hear my work and words in such a great accent and voice.
I think you've got to hear the voice. You're the voice.
A powerful group of elites, known as the Order, have manipulated world events for centuries from the shadows. Now, in the near future, this order has created God, a machine capable of influencing the minds of the world's population. But Zero, the prime candidate for the God Project, has escaped and rallied with him a small band of young, like-minded augments. Together, they seek to end the order before God can be completed and the world brought to its knees. Volume 1 is 180 pages. Volume 2 is 100 pages. Both are glorious and gritty, black and white, and is available as a digital reward or physical add-on in this campaign.
Tell you what, that's how it's done. The author in their own voice, and that's why we do try to bait people into reading it. So you get to actually see and hear these indie creators, these experts, these creative leaders, and Dan giving it straight from the horse's mouth, or straight from the Dan mouth, straight from the Godfoe mouth. Now, this one, we remember we were all over this cover like a rash when you were promoting this one. We must have featured it so many times.
Yeah.
Tell us about Apollyon 20X and this lovely cover. I mean, Josh must have been on fire. You must have had to put him out.
Yeah, what's funny is this cover has gotten more praise and flack from people. I think that's how things go usually, though. This volume follows the augments immediately after the events of Volume 1. And I'm not going to spoil too much, but they wind up in a modern city, and it goes about as well as you can imagine. It's complete and total chaos. They are public enemy number one, and the masses move literally as one to come after them, and they are hiding out in an old abandoned building, an old abandoned church, where they realize that one of them has been replaced by a being, an augment known as Switchblade, who works for, she never says a word, she works for a being from, or a person from Ox's past, Oksana. And that brings in another threat. So there's multiple threats coming in all at once. And we also introduce a character in this called the Blitz Beast, which will be a spin-off series we're going to do. And he's interesting. He is an individual that has an imperial metal suit that he has constructed from old experiments from a World War II. And he's able to kind of make these constructs, electrical, gravitational energy constructs, and he can make quick work of augments. That's what he built it for. And he is also trying to fight the order, but he has his own intentions for finding our heroes.
Well, we like the fact that you can have a material and have different results from its properties, because obviously people are biological. Everybody's different. Everybody reacts different. So that's kind of clever. A bit more clever than adamantium.
I appreciate that. And
that's a sense of synergy between this special kryptonite or adamantium, but you've got your own thing and it reacts. It's almost like the artificial reacting with the divine.
Mm-hmm.
And that tension point creates something that is unpredictable. No?
Yeah. And going back to, I was strongly influenced by the ideas of Hermeticism and alchemy. The idea of the homunculi and that kind of thing. There's what, 1,500 years of writings on it you can go down into. But that idea of the material and the divine, and it being reaching for divinity, but it usually comes out as an abomination. And imperial metal reacts very strongly to will and intent. And that's what the order has learned. And that's what this character, the Blitzbeast, has learned, and his family has learned, that you can almost make it do whatever you want because it is a power dialectic. and it reacts within its power of shaping and what it can do to the will of its master. But the whole point is that the stronger you get in it, or the more of a threat you are, the more of a threat that another one notices.
Yes.
It's just power scaling, and that's a key point. And this isn't a spoiler one, but that's a key point later in Apollyon in volume 3 and 4. Is they realize, like, the way Imperial Metal works is that the stronger you get, the more influence you have on others, and the bigger of a threat, a target you draw on your own back.
Yes. We can only wonder who is the Trismegistus.
And like I said, it should be about 5 volumes, and it's going to, the last volume will tie into, it'll show the end. It'll be a concise story that ties everything together, but it will also open up the whole universe of everything else. And I've struggled with that for a long time because I really wanted it, the eras, to be something anyone could just pick up, go through, and be satisfied with. Yeah. But you reach a point where, like, again, it came back to that thing of insular, making your own thing. And it's like, you know what? That's how a corporation would do it. They would want product A and B and C. Oh, you like A, you like B, like C. I'm like, okay, you can like A, B, and C, but they're also tied together in some way. And you don't have to, it's not Marvel. You have to watch a billion shows to enjoy this, but it is that the art expects something of you. I think, to me, I don't like the idea of dialectics in a lot of ways, and it's that idea of separate little product, or you have to be a slave to our algorithm and watch everything. There's a way to thread that.
Yeah, because if you have the timeline which you have on the website, got to see it, folks. It's the one thing we regret not putting in the show tonight, is the way that there's enough space between them, these books and concepts in the timeline, for them to breathe and be their own thing. But because it's a timeline, there is a thread that can tie them all together.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is it's an overarching narrative, and you can enjoy it on its own, everything on its own. You can play the Biophile Kolga game. You don't have to read the book. But I'd like to think our main thing is, like, you give people more than they ask for. That's what ultimately what we want is, if someone reads the comic, it's anyone can read a comic. You can go to, but can you also read 600 pages of the Apocrypha that also has photography and poetry and stuff in it? No. Like, Marvel and DC aren't going to give you that. I mean, Grant Morrison may have attempted to do some of that. More power to him in some stuff. And Moore and some of these guys wrote peripheral works, kind of. But that's the thing, is, like, even they were slaves to their corporate masters. And then when Moore left, he just started writing 5,000 page books that no one reads, unfortunately. I mean, I haven't read Jerusalem. I should, but
Hey, as long as you read Watchmen and V for Vendetta, and the one, well, the tools actually like as well. Marvelman, we remember reading the original Warrior anthologies, Black and White Heaven, absolutely fantastic.
From Hell.
We like Gary Leach's artwork on Marvel Man, of course. We won't be calling it Miracle Man anytime soon. And but when Alan Davis took over, brilliant. But there is one book I rate even higher than the Watchmen itself, and that is Alan Davis and Alan Moore's Captain Britain.
Oh yeah,
and Mad Jasper's Plasticine Universe, and we think that is just it's the one for us, you know, and it's British.
Well, that's the thing is, and I mean, I got to run soon, but I could talk. I could talk to you for about 6-7 hours, but that it hurts me to say this to some degree, but there is a divide in, I think, the archaic U.S. and, if I have to say, UK, or I'd say British soul. The British soul is older. The U.S. soul is younger, but arguably more dynamic. That's been the narrative, at least.
Yeah.
but you can't have dynamism without dynamite. You can't have it without the material to make that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't like the dialectical idea, the separation of that. But more, he understood Shakespeare. He understood the importance. I mean, as much as he was a crazy wizard that thought fascists were going to come out of nowhere and take over everything, and he understood the importance of
That'll
the
never happen.
yeah, right. He didn't understand what language they would speak. They, they he understood the importance of British and English history,
Yeah.
despite his more progressive view of the world. My problem, what hurts me so drastically, is I feel like part of my culture has hastened the destruction of worldwide culture. And we can get into that. I mean, like I said, that's probably like a 6-hour discussion.
Right, Dan, we've got 10 slides and we're going to call these the lightning rounds. Do you like pub quizzes where you have a lightning round? Yeah.
Sure.
And don't worry, you don't have to drink alcohol if you're not quick enough. Here we go.
Yep.
Josh's artwork. Black and white, existential, drowning in that dark sea. What do you say?
Oh yeah, you called it a bolero of darkness, and I haven't found a better description.
It's to us, it's that innuendo. It's a bolero of darkness. Crikey, we might have to do a promo later with some innuendo and this bolero of darkness. Just look at it, folks. Just look at it. It's a bolero of darkness. That's how we'd sum up the Godfoe Universe. It's a bolero of darkness. Now then, got to talk business. If we're talking art, got to balance it with some commercial business. Tell us about how they can get Godfoe Universe, Apollyon 20X, X, and Biophile Kolga 2.
Sure. The best way and the cheapest way and the most convenient way for backers is to go to Kickstarter, Biophile Kolga Volume 2. You can get our entire universe so far of comics. That's that bottom right tier for, I think, $60, which is, oh my goodness, like almost 500 pages of stuff. We've also got the digital option for that, which is $20. You won't find a better deal anywhere. And with all of these, we're including the Apocrypha again, and you're getting the Codex. That's a lot. I think that's another 500-600 pages of lore and reading you're getting for free. Why not? You can get Kolga in physical or digital. Since you guys are across the pond, unfortunately, it'll be digital strictly. You can also get the Kolga catch-up tier, Kolga 1 and 2, or you can get the Apollyon 20XX catch-up tier as well as an add-on, which is digital or physical.
So you can get the God load from the Godfoe Universe.
Mm-hmm. I think the last one you said was what, 5 gigs you had to download.
Yeah, it felt like it wasn't a straw. I mean, we got pretty fast connection, but it even gave us made our fiber optic feel like a straw. That, I mean, it was the God load of a download. We remember it and Delby thinking, what is this thing? You know, it's like, that's no moon, that's a space station.
we switched over to Google Drive just for that. Now you'll get a link where you can go in and download individual files. That's how it should be.
Yeah, it was an Atlas Shrugged moment, to be sure. Number 3, had to slip that in there, Ain. 3, why do you create indie comics? Is it the power, is it the freedom, or is it just that ability to go just on a journey?
All 3. I couldn't imagine. I don't know why anyone would write for the big 2. Like I don't need another Batman or Superman or Spider-Man story for the rest of my life. I think we've got enough. I don't care anymore. I think
what you actually need, folks, is absolute Godfoe. Moving next on to question 4. We can get through these quite quick. What advice would you give to aspiring creators? On this show, we listen, learn, and share. Go for it, Dan.
Discipline. If you get a story, as strictly as a writer, get up 3-4 a.m., go write for 2 or 3 hours before you have to go to work. If you don't have kids, you have no excuse. Like if you don't have a wife or kids, you have absolutely no excuse. If you work 12 hours a day, you've got a few hours to go write and create and do it. That doesn't mean put out the first thing you do or the only thing you do, but at that, and as much as you write, read good things, read the, I mean, just search, like we've had this discussion before, just search Western literature, the Western canon, grab 5 copies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just read it. And if you don't understand anything, none of us understand all of it. You Google it, you research it, you find the cliff notes, you cross compare it. Who cares? Watch YouTube videos on it. Just learn it. Just learn your culture and your history, man. Like, and you're never gonna finish it. The Western canon is what, 5,000 works at least, something ridiculous like that, if not more. Of course, more in art, and just submerge yourself in art. Just submerge yourself in good art, even if you don't like it at first. Just find something that, and that doesn't mean go to Rolling Stone and be like 100 albums of the past 100 years. No, it's like, I don't know, develop a moral and artistic compass. I don't know how to say
Brilliant.
that.
That's
Like,
perfect. Develop a moral and creative compass. That
yeah.
is liquid gold advice. Amen to that one. Right, what superhero would you be?
Would I be, or would I want to be?
We
Would
could
I
do
be?
both.
Would I be? I don't know. I've always had an affinity for Angel slash Archangel. I've always liked that he was a willful hero, that he chose to do it, even though he was a mutant. He wasn't pushed into it. He was like a rich guy who chose to. He took that burden upon himself and continued it even after he was subjected to Apocalypse's evils. Um, and I thought his character design was perfect. It's like that's the genius of older books and older comics, that they could take the most simple idea and sell it because it hadn't been done before.
Absolutely. Yes. Primordial ideas.
Yep.
Yes. Simple. Keep it simple. Keep it perfect. Tell you what, we're going to, on this occasion, say we'd like to be Robert from the Shadowverse universe,
Nice.
and we'd like to send a special message to the architect of the Shadowverse. Moving swiftly on. Bonus questions, not many, because we don't want you to be like the lawyer and that big glass window from The Simpsons. Number 6, what are your plans for Biophile Kolga going forwards?
Finish the video game, which I hope in the next year I can do. It should be about, Kolga will be 5 to 6 volumes. I've considered it making it longer because we have stories we could tell in it, but that seems like a money grab, or like a fan tease. And it's like, no, I want to stick to our guns of telling a beginning, middle, and end. I don't want to be One Piece or Bleach or anything like that.
No.
But within the Biophile universe, not just with Kolga, we've got a lot planned. We've got a series called Reign of June. We would like to do that. Would be a sequel. We view these things not vertically, but horizontally. Of like, we've got this thing, we've got the story in it, and we can keep branching out with it.
Perfect.
Yep.
Sounds like you've got a plan and you know where you're going. Now, 7, favorite pizza?
Probably sausage. I love a good sausage pizza, man.
Right now, we happily have our left hand. It looks like our right. Don't worry, folks. It's not our drawing hand. That's our right hand. It's just the way it reflects. And we'd probably put that on top of our pizza and get going with pineapples and sausage and anything else we could throw on it right now. We're feeling slightly hungry, but not.
I'm sorry, man.
To the end of the stream. But yes, pizza, anything pizza right now. 4 layers of cheese and hey, pizza made to share. What can you say? Right then, but we have actually managed it to the end of this epochal reprise of our first ever live show, which we had with Dan Phoenix Embers Evans from the Godfoe Universe. And we've not forgotten you, Josh. We've tried to give you plenty of flowers tonight because your stuff is a shadow of darkness. It's a sea of darkness you just want to drown in. And you are evolving, son. Let me tell you that. Let us tell you that. So, right, where can they find out more info from you, Dan, the Godfoe Universe? And we know you've got your link, your website, which we didn't mention, which is absolutely dropped. They're gorgeous. It's
Thank
got
you.
all the features. You've got your trailer on your website. Not many trailers do, but you have. And you've got your you've got your kind of like LinkedIn list of links. That's on a glorious pink background. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
Where can we find you?
GodfoeUniverse.com is the best. You can follow us on X. You'll have to excuse like my tangents I go on. I don't know. I've accepted the fact that you either are yourself and you should work as if you're already canceled. you should create art as if you're already blacklisted. I think getting in the modern world, I think the best thing is just to go ahead and get your personality out of the way with people. And if they like it, they like it. They don't, they don't. I've never not bought art because I didn't like a person's personality. Again, I'm a devout Christian. If I didn't buy art based on people who didn't agree with me, I wouldn't buy most art.
What did Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind say to Scarlett? With enough courage, you can get by without a reputation.
It's yeah. So yeah, there. Our website's probably the best thing. GodfoeUniverse.com. We have a Substack you can check out. Of course, we got the Kickstarter and the Fund My Comic running. You can find those on our X or our website. The first links at the top. Please go ahead and back if you want this book. It's the best. I'm saying please because it's the best deal you're going to get on it. Whenever the campaigns are over and the books go to our website, they are more expensive. The campaign price is the best price to get all of this stuff.
Absolutely. Now, this is the bit where we say, yes, our goodbyes, but a special goodbye, because we talk about phoenixes. Dan helped us get started with our very first live show, and it was dynamite then, and tonight it was dynamite. We just love our puns on this show, and we'd like to thank you for being our first and our most recent guest on live 5 Pillars of Storytelling 59. We'd like to thank you for being our special guest, we'd say a creative leader with some intellectual weight and heft behind him. You and Josh are forging a different path to everybody else. If anybody could be said to contain the promise of what indie comics can be, unshorn of reputation, unshorn of trying to be what the not so big two are, we can do it in one word: original. And it's about being original out there at the wild frontier of indie comics. Where are you going? You have some idea, but the reader doesn't necessarily know, and they don't care. They just want to go and get in your boat, and doesn't matter if the boat sinks or goes there. That's where we're going. So we like the existential chat tonight, and we were very subtly provocative to actually normally we have a little bit of a rail to help guests along, but we have that. But for you, we thought we're going to go widescreen and encourage you just to go off the track and maybe get back on the track at some point. So we wish you very well, Dan Evans and Josh, Sea of Darkness, on your existential journey through the Godfoe universe and that beautiful timeline, separate by era, but one by epoch. And Godspeed, sir. Please like, comment, and subscribe to Dan and Josh and Godfoe Universe and the 5 Pillars of Storytime.
Thank you, Kyle. I should get you to do all my promos because I can't do anything better than that ever.
Tell you what, Dan, you know where to find us. Sunday, Wednesday, Friday for the indie comic promos. We'll do the rest. You're already doing the heavy lifting anyhow. And Thursday, specifically for Josh's beautiful existential noir and those luminous secondary palette colors that he's lighting up like a Roman candle. Get him in on Thursdays as well. It's extra promo, as we call it, the Power One. Every one view counts. Yeah, it's just another brick in the wall. So, right, God bless you, and thanks again, Dan. We appreciate it. Godfoe Universe, the circle is now complete.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.